So you got to know what to convince the American people of and what to hold your ground on. And the number one thing to hold your ground on is constitutional rights. So I'm going to do some...
Like the Second Amendment.
It is so stupid if the fundamental principles are completely flawed. You can't compromise on that, okay?
Hasan Piker talks about how he's hurt by the way his good old Unky Chunky Cenk Uygur has been acting. Let's see what Hasan has to say.
Okay? You can't tolerate their intolerance because their intolerance is inherently illogical. Their intolerance is not coming from a place of genuine concern, but pure anger. And oftentimes, it is a very apt mechanism of distraction and deflection away from the real vectors of harm in contemporary society. It's stupid. This doesn't mean that you should, like, I don't know, actively treat every anyone and everyone as though they're Charlie Kirk. You know what I mean? Like a professional villain. But it certainly means that it certainly means that, like, stay true to your convictions and try to find areas where you do agree that do not pertain to shitting on trans people or shitting on black people, or you can stay civil, especially when you're having a conversation with, you know, normal conservatives who are victims of propaganda themselves, understanding that they arrived at these positions due to so much social conditioning. Okay? Yo, you just said not to compromise. You need to be more careful with your words. Yes, never compromise on your values. The f do you mean? Never compromise on your values and never capitulate the right-wing framing. Absolutely. But that doesn't mean that you should also be antagonistic or aggressive to your some random conservative person that you met. Okay? I try to play this delicate line fairly well to the best of my ability. You can find similarities, you can find shared interests, you can find areas of civility, you can find areas where you're in agreement. That is how you're supposed to do that. That is actually a very successful way, in my opinion, of actively de-radicalizing people. But the similarities that you find should not be centered around how you also personally think, yeah, some of these trans people are weird and gross. Like, creating a permission structure to shit on trans people is stupid. Because all of
Well, isn't that what Cenk Uygur is doing right now? I mean, listen, even though I think Cenk is full of BS, I mean, isn't he? That's what he's trying to do. He's like trying to find that common ground, that type of common ground where he's like, okay, I agree with this, I agree with that, and now he's reaching out to other right wingers. I mean, isn't that what he's doing pretty much? And I don't know where Cenk is like crapping on trans people, as Hasan puts it. And by the way, too, what's wrong with saying, oh, yeah, by the way, like saying trans people shouldn't be playing in women's sports is not crapping all over trans people. They don't have a right to play women's sports. And that's crapping all over women. And that's crapping all over women, the women who train hard for these sports. So I don't know what Hasan Piker is going on about. He says it's okay to try to bridge that gap, but then it doesn't sound like he wants to bridge the gap at all.
now you're just continuously normalizing their attitude. You're giving them additional security in their bigotry rather than try to decouple them away from this bigoted way of understanding the world. Now, of course, Charlie Kirk himself is not, a random conservative guy. He is actively working to create more random conservative guys and doing it fairly successfully. He is a part of a major machine, and his wealth and his prominence in this world relies on him successfully doing so, relies on him actively turning people more conservative.
So you got to know what to convince the American people of and what to hold your ground on. And the number one thing to hold your ground on is constitutional rights. So I'm going to do some...
Like the Second Amendment.
What? You said not to compromise with conservatives is about finding middle ground? No, dude. You completely misunderstand my point, okay? You completely misunderstand my point. What do you mean finding a middle ground? Conservatives say mass deport every single immigrant living on U.S. soil. You say don't mass deport any immigrant living on U.S. soil. Is the middle ground that we just deport, 10 million migrants then? Like, the idea that there is a golden mean in every situation is perhaps one of the most commonly misunderstood positions that people just slap on to every single instance where it doesn't fit. Okay.
Or how about the middle ground there could be, oh, how about we just deport the criminals? I mean, and I know technically all illegal immigrants are criminals because they're breaking the law to get here, but you know what I mean when I say the criminals, like the ones that are here to just wreak havoc, the one that's not going to add any value to our society, the ones that are not trying to live normal lives and stuff, like the ones that are actually actively breaking the law. How about that could be a middle ground right there, huh? What about that? That could be a compromise. And you don't reach these compromises by just demonizing the other. I mean, you have to talk and talk it out and then see if there's any middle ground.
It is so stupid if the fundamental principles are completely flawed. You can't compromise on that. Okay? No, it's about trying to understand why they think that way. Usually they have misinformation. It's about educating them by finding where they're at. What do you mean? Okay, you can't say it's about finding middle ground. Ironic because you just started this process by saying you need to be more careful with your words. And then you literally went into a position that is entirely different than this. Maybe you should be more careful with your words, chatter. The f do you mean? You say it's about finding middle ground. No, it's about trying to understand why they think that way. Usually they have misinformation. It's about educating them by finding where they're at. Yeah, I don't disagree with this. And not only do I not disagree with this is something that I believe personally as well. I know where a lot of that that false belief comes from. I just described it. If you were listening to my words, you would have understood it. I said it comes from social conditioning. But it's not about finding middle ground. It's about finding common ground. And it's about reorienting people's anger to the appropriate vectors of pain. It's about recognizing where that harm comes from and then saying, I see you, I feel you, and I know exactly where it's coming from. It's not like one of the easiest ways to kind of just judo your way out of this argument whenever someone is being like hyper transphobic is telling them like, it's not, you know, your manager is not a trans person. Okay. BlackRock buying out the remainder of the available housing inventory is not conducted at the behest of big trans. It's not a trans person. It's not an undocumented migrant that's like your landlord that is causing you pain in your life. It's not an undocumented migrant that's your manager, okay? And even if they were, they're not doing that because they're an undocumented migrant or trans. They're doing that because that's the position that they have arrived at in society. Society has normalized this kind of infliction of pain. Yeah.
So pretty much Hasan Piker's position is just illegal immigrants, they can do no wrong. Trans people can do no wrong. And if they do wrong, well, it's not their fault. It's because of the system. Hasan Piker is such a complete wacko. How does anyone listen to this guy? Pretty much his position is just, yeah, you know, those rich people, the corporations, the landlords, yeah, they're the real bad guys. Yeah, you know that illegal immigrant that just like raped and murdered your daughter? Oh, yeah. Well, it's not his fault. It's your evil landlord's fault. You know, maybe if that illegal immigrant who raped and murdered your daughter, you know, if that person maybe didn't have to pay such high rent, maybe they wouldn't have done that. You know? Yeah, listen, your pain. I know you're grieving over there. Oh, that guy wearing a dress that went into the bathroom and SA'd your daughter. Oh, yeah, I feel you. I feel your pain. That's horrific. That's horrible. But it's not their fault. They're just a part of this system. It's actually the corporation's fault. Make it make sense, people.
Be like, I'm so mad that eggs are $8. And it's like, yeah, it's because of trans people. You know, it's the
whoever made that argument. Who has ever made that argument that the reason eggs are expensive is because of trans people? Like, what? Yeah, the eggs being high is because of the government. And also, trans people playing women's sports, that's also an issue. And just letting them do whatever they want because they're trans, that's an issue. Both can be issues, Hasan.
Structure. It's the fact that American Congress is bought and sold by corporations.
To hold your ground on is constitutional rights. So I'm going to do some...
Like the Second Amendment.
I mean, here, hit him back with the Second Amendment is a false interpretation. The modern understanding of the Second Amendment is completely at odds with the way that it was historically interpreted. Go ahead. Don't let him get away with that. Come on, shaky Gurga. Why is he turning to a Alan Combs in the Hannity and Combs structure here? I just, it hurts my feelings to see my uncle.
It's because Cenk Uygur got completely owned right there. I mean, he had no comeback, you know? Cenk Uygur wants to be like, oh yeah, I'm for the Constitution. But yeah, what about the Second Amendment? Cenk's like, oh crap. And so, yeah, Cenk Uygur had nothing to say. Hasan Piker making no sense and trying to cope here as he usually does. What do you guys think about this though? Sound off in the comment section below. Subscribe to my channel if you enjoy content like this. And if you do enjoy content like this, I got a whole bunch more goodies for you on the screen to click away and binge on.